and welcome to Lily's Library. So another month is over and another month has just begun, so it is time to do my reading wrap up and also my TBR and a little book haul for the past month-ish. So during October I read a total of 5 different books. I've got 4 physical ones here. One of these I actually read digitally and then I read another ebook, so it was a mix of 3 physical books and 2 ebooks. So starting with the very first book I read, this was a carryover from September and that was Ghost Cities by Xiang Lu, and I really enjoyed this. This is something I think I would definitely benefit from a reread, just because I feel like I got a lot of what happened, but I think it would just give me a lot more and I'd grasp everything a lot more if I did reread it. But this book is kind of inspired by the abandoned mega ghost cities in China and what that kind of looks like. This is a lot about like surveillance as well and looking at how people are viewed differently. It's really interesting. It's split between 2 different time periods and like 2 different POVs and everything. So we've got some in modern day time where we're following the main character who was kind of going on this really weird journey, and then we've also got some stuff from Imperial China. And it's really interesting how those kind of end up weaving together in the end and everything kind of comes together. It's such an interesting and unique book and really hilarious as well. And I totally understand why it has won so many awards. The next book I read is such an amazing book. It's very short as well, so I read it very quickly, and that was Hunchback. This is by Sao Ichikawa, but this is a really interesting read. I think this is something a lot of people should pick up and it should be mandatory reading if you're in the book world, because it really will open your eyes and make you think differently about how privileged you are to be able to actually read a book, like a physical book, and hold it up and read it with your eyes and get through everything. It's a really interesting experience and perspective that this book brings. But in this, our main character has a congenital muscle disorder and we kind of follow her as she is navigating her disability, being a woman in Japan and being kind of like bound to this apartment and stuff in this care home. And we look at her kind of exploring her sexuality and her life and her desires through fiction and writing that. And it's really interesting and messed up, the things that happen. It's definitely will make a lot of people uncomfortable, but it has a lot of really important decisions about what rights women have, especially a woman with a disability in Japan. It's just a very eye-opening and beautiful book. Next, I read a YA fantasy, and that was The Last Tiger. This is by Julia and Brad Rue. They are siblings, and this is actually inspired by their grandparents' story and their grandparents' time during living in Korea when it was occupied and colonized by Japan. So this is obviously a fictionalized version of that time period, but a lot of what happens and what it deals with is very much real and true to what happened in history. It's just so well done. Like, this is a very fun and easy to navigate YA. It's very fast paced and it's just such an enjoyable book, but it really doesn't shy away from those tougher topics that do come with colonialism and what Japan did. Like, it does discuss comfort women as well and talks about kind of like the grief and the rage and the anger that all of this what colonialism does to people and how that impacts them, as well as like the people that are navigating different parts within it. Like, we've got someone who is from a very wealthy family whose family has aligned themselves with the Japanese, but they are Korean, and how that impacts her. And then we've got characters as well who are like on the servant level, like he works for her family and his family can't afford anything and are always being abused by the police to try and get what little money they do have. So it's a very interesting perspective that this brings, and it is just a really unique and interesting book. The next book I read was my main read for the month, and it was another Farseer Readers book club book, and that is Fool's Errand. This one is book 1 in the 20 Man trilogy. This is set a long time after the events of the Farseer trilogy. Like, I think it said 15 years after, so Fitz is now in his 30s, which is insane to experience and to think about. But yeah, we're kind of following him as the Fool is finally back. They're back together, they're reunited, and Fitz has been kind of roped in to find Prince Dutiful, which is the next Farseer prince. And he's been taken away or has ran off on his own, and we're trying to navigate and find where Dutiful has gone and what is going on. It also has a lot to do with the old bloods, or the people that do have the wit as well, and kind of an uprising that is coming there, or maybe could be coming. It's very interesting, a lot of what happens in this, and it's very sad as well. This is probably, out of all of the hot books I've read so far, this one has definitely got the happiest ending in its own way, or like a more positive ending, but it is still genuinely heartbreaking. There was something in it that happened that I truly did not want to happen. I thought it would happen in this trilogy based off how we were kind of getting into it in this book, but I did not expect it to happen this early. And while it was very heartbreaking to read, it was honestly handled just so beautifully and was such a beautiful scene in its own way. But this book is just phenomenal. Another 5 stars. Just all her books are perfection. I can't wait to delve into the next one. It is just So good. Fitz also has a lot of trauma that he needs to work through in these books. So I'm hoping we actually do get some development there, because it is very painful to see the way he navigates the world and to see his reaction to things. So I would love to see some development there, and I'm really hoping we get it, since he is a lot older, but it's completely understandable he is the way he is because of what has happened to him. But yeah, I'm so excited to get to the next book. But the final book I ended up reading was an ebook, and it was a romance, and that was People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. This is her newest book, and I really enjoyed this. I think I rated it at like 4 stars. It was really good. But this is kind of like a little small town romance. We've got 2 different POVs, which I loved having 2 POVs in this. It just made it so much better. But one of our characters, Prue, she lives in this small town and has been there her whole life. And we follow this as she kind of navigates living with her mum and caring for her mum, who has Alzheimer's and is really struggling. And she's basically a full-time carer for her mum, while also helping her dad out at the grocery and like fuel store that they own in this small town. And then one day this guy comes into town on the day that they're reholding her parents' wedding because of Alzheimer's, and they have that little meet cute moment that is very cute and one of the best scenes in the book. And yeah, we kind of follow as their relationship progresses from there. And then our male character, Milo, he's our other POV. So he is someone that grew up in a town not too far from this area, or it's like kind of close but not that close, and he's had a very rough childhood. Him and his siblings were abused by their parents, and he ended up fleeing his home and just abandoning his family, like his siblings, because of what happened to him. And he spent all of these years traveling and going all over the world and having all these crazy and insane experiences. And then one day he ends up getting a call from his brother for a 119, which is their version of 911, like an emergency between siblings, and he has to return to his brother's house to find out what's going on. And yeah, it kind of goes from there. It is a very sweet and fun and spicy romance as well. It was just perfect. I love Hannah Bonham Young. I still have 2 books of hers to read. I've been trying to pace myself so I don't get through all of them, but I'm very glad this book came out at the time it did, because it was just such an easy and fun read to kind of end the month. I was hoping to read a horror in October, and I did start one, but it was kind of too emotionally heavy for me. I am hoping to continue it in November, so we'll see how we go, but I just know it's going to be quite a tough read. So I guess from there, we might as well just go straight into my November TBR. I can't believe it's also November. That is absolutely insane that there's only 2 months left in the year. But we'll start with the carryovers from October. So that horror book I was talking about is The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve-Dew. I have read the first part of this book, so I'm 60-ish pages in, and I can just tell this is going to be a lot, and I've heard a lot of people as well tell me it's a lot. I am gonna give it a go again and try and read it. But this is a historical horror. This is set in 1950s Jim Crow era Florida. And in this we follow a young boy who ends up getting into a scuffle, basically, in a fight with his white neighbor. And he ends up getting sent to this boys' reformatory. So we follow him as he is sent there and is navigating that and looking at the horrors that is happening there. There's meant to be a lot of ghosts that are there of the boys that have died on its grounds, and there's some very odd things that happen. A lot of the kids and like black kids in this neighborhood, if they get sent there, they don't return, or they return different, and if they die there, the family never gets answers on what truly happened. So it obviously is going to have a lot of horrors in it. This is also heavily based off what actually happened in the US during this time. So it's just going to be a very heavy and important read, and I've heard that it's just so well done. So I am intrigued to be reading more of this. I am just slightly nervous, just for multiple different reasons, but I will be trying to get through this more. This might be one where I try and read a part every now and then, because there's quite a few parts in this, so I can probably like stage it and stagger it throughout the month. Then the next carryover is actually a reread. This is one I'm rereading via audiobook, and it is to prepare myself for something else. I am rereading She Who Became the Sun by Shirley Parker Chan. So He Who Drowned the World, the sequel to this, has been on my TBR so many months this year, and I've tried reading it and I got a decent amount into it. But I've just been really struggling to remember what everything is and what happened, so I decided to start rereading this. So I'm going to do a tandem read of this. I've been listening to the audiobook and I've mostly been listening to the audiobook, but I am going to start like reading it along as well. So I'll be doing that throughout this month, and then that way I can do He Who Drowned the World in December, and I'll also do a tandem read of that, because I've noticed with these books where they are quite historically dense that it does help me to do both at the same time. Just, I do love the concept of this and the characters and the world, but just something about Shirley Parker Chan's writing is just not the most accessible to me personally. There's just something that has like a little barrier between the language and my brain for some reason. So the tandem read definitely does help. help, I will be reading a lot more of this. But this is a historical fantasy. It's very heavy on the history. Like I said, there is fantasy elements, but that's kind of like a background part of that. But in this, we follow a young girl who is from a very poor family. There is a famine going on and her father and brother both die. She's always been told her entire life that she will amount to nothing, but her brother will amount to greatness. So once he amounts to nothing, she decides to take his fate and make it hers since he took hers. And we follow her as she ends up going to this monastery and being there, and then that kind of skyrockets and spirals into her maybe becoming the next emperor or fighting to become the next emperor. And there's just so much stuff that happens in this. It's just really interesting and beautiful and very harrowing at the same time. And I know the next book is meant to be devastating, so I'm intrigued to get to more of this one because I remember parts of it but not a whole heap, so it'll be nice to have that refresher and then get into He Who Drowned the World. So the next book I'm planning on reading is book 2 in the 20 Man trilogy, and that is The Golden Fool. I'm very excited for this, but also very nervous for the rest of this trilogy because I have heard it is all quite sad. So we'll see how it goes, but this one is set pretty much after the events of book 1. Fitz has kind of returned to life at court and has now been roped into this new role, so we're following him throughout that. And I'm assuming this is going to have a lot more to do with what is happening with the Old Bloods as well, or some other stuff going on in this world, especially since we're maybe getting more of the Outlanders here. So I'm very intrigued and excited to read this one. I'm definitely going to be delving into it so soon because I'm just so excited. But the plan is as well to finish this trilogy by the end of the year, so book 3 will be our December book. Then I've got a few new releases on my TBR. So the first one is a paranormal romance, and that is Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is actually like the QBD exclusive edition. I don't know if this is any other bookshops or if there's any other bookshops that do this. I was hoping to get the green one because I love green more, but purple is also nice as well, but this is kind of like an interconnected sequel to Bride. I don't actually know what the exact plot of this is. I'm just excited to read it. I love Ali Hazelwood. I feel like this will be a good book to have on my TBR as a little breakup between some of these books because that's typically what I use romance for, but we'll see how I go. I feel like I will probably read this before the end of the year, whether it's in November or December, we shall see. Then I've also got a sequel to a book I read last year that was actually one of my favorite books from last year, and that is Eternal Rune by Tika Skirma. So the first book is Immortal Dark. These are dark academia vampire books, and the entire cast is black, so they're all black vampires, which just in the year of sinners, it's perfect. But I'm really excited for this. I'm also really nervous because I've seen a few people's reactions to like the last like little bit of this book, and I don't know if the reactions are like in a good way or in a bad way. Like if it's a good ending or a sad thing or a fucked up thing. So I'm very intrigued, but I can't really say too much about what this is about because it does obviously have, it is a sequel to book 1, but in book 1, we follow our main character, Kidan, whose sister was taken away from her by vampires and went missing. And we follow her as she's trying to track down the vampires who took her sister and get answers about what truly happened. And that ends up leading her to Uxley College, which is this giant campus where her family actually has a house. And in that house is a house vampire whose role is kind of to try and look over it and manage it. But if he lives in that house without her family for a certain amount of time, it automatically becomes his. So she decides to go there and stay there to try and find answers about her sister while also keeping this house out of this vampire's hands. And we kind of follow their relationship that goes from there. It's very interesting. The writing is just absolutely beautiful. It's like enemies to, I don't even know what you'd call them, to maybe enemies again. It's a very great dynamic between the two characters. And we've also obviously got that mystery of what has happened to her sister. And it's just fantastic. And I'm so excited to delve into this one, especially where book 1 left off. Then the last book on my TBR for now, I don't know if I'm going to add more books, is a book that is not out yet, but it is The Strength of the Few, which is the sequel to The Will of the Many. I am so excited for this to come out. I have been dying to read this. I'm so excited, especially since The Will of the Many ended on such an insane cliffhanger. So I'm really hoping I can get a copy on release, but I just can't wait to pick this up. These are kind of like Roman-inspired fantasies. In this, we've got this like thing called will, where people can cede their will to those above them, and there's different ranks within this world, where people higher up obviously get will from more people and have a lot more powers and abilities. In this as well, we're navigating a mystery that is at the center of this magical school, or this school where people kind of learn where to go from there and how to use their abilities and are tested and everything. And we follow our main character as he is tasked to try and find out what happened to this guy's brother and find out what is going on inside this campus. And the ending, absolutely insane. So I'm very excited to read it. I think I need a refresher on The Will of the Many because I do know what happened, but I might need to read like the last chapter or two to kind of refresh myself on it, but I really cannot wait to get to this. It sounds so good, and I've seen some early reviews and it looks really good and they've been really positive, so that is just a great sign. Like I said, I don't know if I am gonna add more books to my TBR because I do have my 10 before the end list, and I just don't know what ones from that I feel like reading, and I'm kind of regretting some of the books I chose, but we'll see what happens. I'm kind of tossing up between Daughter of the Moon Goddess and maybe also The City of Brass or Parable of the Sower, because I think if I read Parable, then I could go on to the sequel in December potentially, or maybe I'll read it in December and then get the sequel in the new year because I don't own it yet. But I'm still tossing up between that, but they're kind of my reading plans for the moment for November. Then I also thought we would do a little book haul and talk about some of the books I have recently acquired, because I actually have got a few. So I'll go through the ones I got in Korea and Japan. There is another 2 I have, but they're in other places and I can't be bothered to pick them up, so you'll have to wait for my specific Japan and Korea haul to see them. But the 2 novels I got in Korea were Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is actually a non-fiction like memoir, and then we've also got Human Acts by Hong Kong. I won't talk in too much detail about these, but I'm very excited about both of these and got them both for pretty cheap as well, which is great. And then since next month I'll be reading book 3 in the Tawny Man trilogy, I got Fool's Fate, which is obviously the 3rd and final book, so I picked this up. I will need to start getting the Rainwild Chronicle books soon as well. I've seen a few bookshops near me that do have copies of all 4 books in that quartet, so I'm probably going to pick them up soon. Maybe I'll get the first 2 books for myself as a Christmas present and then get the next 2 books for myself in February as a birthday present. I feel like that's how I'll probably do it. But yeah, so I just picked this up when I saw it. And then I also picked up some new releases. 2 of them I've already spoken about. The first one is Mate by Ali Hazelwood. Again, this is like the QBD exclusive edition. They did also have Bride in this. I was hoping to get the green one, but they only had this. But yeah, I just wanted a copy, so I picked it up. And then of course I got Eternal Rune as well. And then the final book I picked up is The Princess Knight. This is by Kate Jacobs. I have been wanting to read this for so long. As soon as she announced that she was working on this, it just sounded like so fun, and it would be such a nice little fantasy romance. I think it's a romance. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm very intrigued by this, and I think the cover is like absolutely beautiful, and I just love the illustrations on it. So I'm hoping to try and get to this one soon. In this we follow 2 different characters, and one of our characters is this princess, and she and this other prince have kind of like the potential to be the perfect royal couple, and she's, I guess, always had feelings for him, but then he doesn't propose. And in order to try and win him back and to win him over, she ends up joining the same military training academy as him. But when she's there, she ends up meeting this warrior guy who thinks she's cute but doesn't have a thing for blonde princesses. He thinks there's no harm in joining her and training her, but then that quickly changes, I guess. And we look at them as they navigate that relationship and also the impending war that's happening. So it sounds really fun and cute, and again, just the most beautiful cover, so I am very excited for this. But that is it for this week's video. Let me know what's on your November TBR or the book you're most excited to get to in the month. And yeah, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.